It's useful, but more for beginners. This book, however, probably changed my life. This first book that I want to show you guys is called The Movie Art of Sid Mead, Visual Futurist. Sid Mead, he's worked on a lot of sci-fi stuff. Like, you name a sci-fi film that's come out in the past couple of years, and Sid Mead has probably done visual development work for it. He is an amazing concept artist. I will admit that I am not a huge fan of like the grimdark, hard sci-fi, future dystopian stuff, because if you think about it, we're sort of like already living in a dystopia, and I sort of don't want my escapist media that I consume to already be a reflection of my reality. So I am far more a fan of the Studio Ghibli, like, soft cottagecore fantasy kind of thing, like magical realism. I'm into that. But Sid Mead's work is still absolutely gorgeous. His use of color is really what enraptures me. Like, let me find it. This page, such good color, like just absolutely gorgeous. You're gonna hear a lot of like page turning audio in this video just because I'm gonna spend some time looking through it and figuring out what I want to show you guys. Look at the pages here. These spreads, absolutely fantastic. I love stuff like this. If you are into the sci-fi stuff, definitely pick this up. If you were interested in like how to render architecture, like spaceships, space itself, cool futuristic vehicles and people, this is going to be for you, and it is really, really interesting to look at. This next one is The Art of Spirited Away by Miyazaki. Do I even have to say anything about this? If you haven't seen Spirited Away, I feel really bad for you. You should rectify that. Spirited Away is amazing. In this book, you not only have like sort of the whole roadmap of visual development of all of the characters, all of the aspects of the movie, you also have the whole script, you have like the storyboarding for the whole movie in here. I mean, like, it is incredible. And like everything, they talk about everything. They talk about like the technology they use, how they mix like traditional art and animation in their films, and it's just, if you were interested in animation, if you were interested in Studio Ghibli, which why wouldn't you be, this is going to be the book for you. It is amazing, and one of the things that I really want to do is collect more of these books because they are incredible. This next series of a couple of books is going to be more traditional art focused. So a lot of the books that I have are about oil painting and traditional art because that is sort of what I identify with as an artist, and that's the aspect of my work that I really want to focus on improving. So this is The Elements of Landscape Painting by Suzanne Brooker. Suzanne Brooker is a really great artist, and this book and a lot of the books in this same sort of broad category are less like books that you read through and more like courses that you work through. So this book is structured around certain like exercises that she wants you to complete and certain like things that you should do to improve your skill set of landscape painting. She also talks a lot about the fundamentals of oil painting, so you don't need another book talking about the basics if you are really new to the medium. This book basically walks you through how to do the elements of landscape painting. So mountains, grass, water, sky, and all of that stuff is really important if you want to get started with sort of the whole subject matter. And if you read this book and if you follow what it advises you to do, you will have a concrete grasp on how to actually tackle these topics. Next, we also have another book by Suzanne Brooker. This is the Portrait Painting Atelier. This is, again, also by Suzanne Brooker, and what I love especially about this book are all of like the really good pieces of art in it. This is one example on the back cover here, and just like if you flip through any part of this book, you see some really amazing stuff, like some really amazing paintings. There's tons of demonstration in here. Like if you want to understand the skull, there is lots of really good resources in here for how to start doing that. There's just exercises for you to do. She advises you to do like sculpting and stuff as well. There's lots of drawing discussed. There's information on how to transform a photograph reference to a painted image and sort of the things that you want to think about when you are taking your reference photos. Just really, really important information if you are interested in figure painting and portrait painting. So one of my goals for this year is to get into portrait painting and figure drawing, sort of expanding my repertoire as a painter, and this book I am probably going to be leaning heavily on going forward, as well as the next book that we're going to be talking about, which is the Classical Painting Atelier by Juliet Aristides. I hope I pronounced her name right, but She has a whole series of books on classical painting, classical drawing, portrait painting, portrait drawing. I just own this one. It is a little bit like worse for wear because I bought this copy used. The strong suit of this book is translating like techniques that the old masters used in the Renaissance and onward to contemporary studio practice. So you probably don't want to necessarily paint just like Caravaggio, for example. You want to take the lessons that he incorporated in his work and translate it into your own voice. And this book talks a lot about that. It talks a lot about like specific oil painting techniques. It talks a lot about color. All of these books talk a lot about color, to be honest. If you're interested in underpaintings, grisaille, all of that stuff that is discussed in depth in here, this book and the one that follows that I'll be talking about next discusses composition, design systems, like how to deliberately construct things. A lot of the paintings the old masters did were very deliberately constructed. They didn't just like have an idea and then just run with it. They like very mathematically and almost scientifically like planned out their paintings in a very deliberate kind of way to attract your attention in a very specific way, to impart a very specific mood or have you go away from the painting feeling a very, very specific way. I keep saying that a lot, I'm sorry. But it also discusses specific artists, which I think is important, and what I really love about art books in general, they introduce you to contemporary artists that are like masters that are alive and working today, which I think is really great. The next book, it's kind of similar. Traditional Oil Painting Techniques by Virgil Elliott. So Virgil Elliott is kind of a controversial figure, I guess, at least like in the art circles that I know, because he doesn't like the Impressionists. So Virgil Elliott is very opinionated. He thinks that like a lot of artists should, he thinks that all artists for that matter should study old masters. Sorry, there is construction going on a few blocks away. I am really, really sorry if you can hear that, but it is loud. I apologize. But Virgil Elliott talks a lot about the old master techniques from the Renaissance to the present, and basically like sort of doesn't like modern art, doesn't like Impressionism, doesn't like when people innovate. He thinks that art should be done in this very specific way, which is fine, but it is not obviously the majority opinion. And that is not to say that the book isn't good. The book is very detailed. It goes into immense detail, step-by-step processes for working on various techniques that the old masters used. Like again, it says it right here, clear step-by-step instructions, and that is true. But if you are looking for someone to look up to, if you are looking for someone who will advise you to innovate, to try new things, to like focus on expressionism and impressionism and like do really interesting things with your work, sort of push the boundary and go to a more modern place, Virgil Elliott is not that person. Yeah, the book is really interesting. It is kind of pricey, and I haven't studied it enough really to be able to judge whether or not it's worth it. It's just a book that I have. The next book that I want to show you guys is Color and Light by James Gurney. James Gurney is awesome. Like, he's on YouTube, he's great, he's an amazing painter, he has worked in so many styles and mediums, he is an incredible resource, probably one of the best artists alive today, at least on this platform. This book, Color and Light, basically talks about color and light, how light affects color, how color affects light, all of that stuff. And for me, this book is instrumental in getting my style more where I want it to be, which is a more impressionist place, which is why I sort of dislike Virgil Elliott. But that's not to say that Virgil Elliott is bad. He's not bad. He's just a guy. He has opinions. But James Gurney, he is the artist of Dinotopia. He paints a lot of dinosaurs, paints a lot of like fantastical magical realism stuff, and his work is amazing. Like, if you just flip through this book, you will have such incredible inspiration when it comes to color palettes, composition, movement. I mean, like, so many of his works are just so interesting, and it is kind of complementary, I guess, to Sid Mead in a sort of different way, but the pages in this book are gorgeous, and I just really like looking at them. And this is why I've filmed this video multiple times, because I just keep getting sidetracked and start looking at the books because they're like, oh, pretty. So this is Alphonse Mucha by Tomoko Sato. So Alphonse Mucha was sort of the face of Art Nouveau, at least as we experience it today. And a lot of his work was very commercial. So he did advertisements for fragrances, drinks, cigarettes, that kind of stuff. And he's very much well known for, let me find it, his illustrations of like very flowery women. This is probably sort of the stuff that you know him from, if you know him. And what I find personally really interesting about his work, it sort of is not a lot of his really commercial stuff. The stuff that transcends beyond that, that goes to a more different, unique place, is what I personally find much more compelling. So a lot of his like masterpieces, he painted this whole series of works called the Slav Epic. That is sort of what I find really fascinating about his art, sort of when he transcends the commercial stuff and starts doing more storytelling, narrative pieces. Not to say that his like commercial stuff is bad. It's, you know, incredible. There's lots of line weight going on. There's lots of interesting things going on with composition and like how he renders certain forms. It's very flowery, it's very botanical, it's very gorgeous. If you're interested in like flowers and plants, this is going to be an artist that you really want to check out. And his use of composition and like how he frames his work is just really fascinating. So the next one is one that is not my favorite. It is Impressionism by Karen H. Grimm. So this book is very brief. It's very brief. It is not comprehensive. It's not very long either. And the good part about this book is that it introduces you to a lot of artists. If you are very new to Impressionism, this is going to be a useful resource for you. But if you know a thing or two about Impressionism, if you know artists like Berthe Morisot, Mary Cassatt, Van Gogh, Monet, and Manet, this is going to be less useful for you. I would more recommend something that goes more in depth, something much more comprehensive. That being said, it's cheap. And if you are very, very new to all of this, I would recommend this as an initial reader. But if you are a more intermediate scholar of art history, this is going to be a little bit too beginnerish for you. So, okay, I don't know if the next one really counts as an art book, but it's Humans of New York by Brandon Stanton. I love Humans of New York and I love Brandon Stanton's work. So if you aren't aware, Brandon goes around New York City and elsewhere around the world and just photographs people, regular people, and asks them about their life story, and he writes all of it down and he compiles it into these books. And you have these amazing, I have lots of like pages tabbed over here. You have a lot of these amazing like portraits of just these people, and they're such good reference photos. I don't know if he like intended it to be that way. It's more of a coffee table kind of book, but there is lots of stuff in here for studying faces, anatomy, people, because there are so many different angles, there's so many different expressions, ethnicities, ages, and if portrait drawing is something that you're really interested in, this is going to be a great resource for you when it comes to reference photos. You can just leaf through this book and find a person that you want to paint, and it's just right there. Lots of different lighting situations in this book, just lots of interesting compositions and people and faces, and it is just really cool to look through. I discussed this book in my gift ideas for artists video, but this is Art/Work by Heather Darcy Bondari and Jonathan Melber. Everything that you need to know to pursue your art career. Yes, this is more for people who are probably not watching this video, people who are trying to get their work into galleries and pursue a more traditional art industry kind of career. That is not me. So I didn't know that when I bought this book. I thought it was going to be a little bit more kind of general, and it makes sense that that's what this book is about, because these people are really experienced in the gallery system and the art world, sort of that whole like traditional kind of scene. But that's not really me, and that's not really where I want to go with my work. So if you are interested in your work in galleries and art fairs and having agents and stuff, this is going to be more up your alley. But I was hoping for more of like legal advice and business advice, and that is not what this book is really. It touches on those topics, but it is very much, again, focused on like practical resources for artists looking to get into galleries and stuff. All right, next up we have something more a little bit about mindset. These last couple of books I did cover again in my gift ideas for artists video. This is Make Your Art No Matter What by Beth Pickens. This book is really about mindset, sort of how to make art consistently, both practically and how to find the headspace for it, how to get past it. And Beth Pickens is coming from this place of like, as artists, it is really important for our quality of life to be able to make art and to make art. And she's basically coming from a place of wanting to help us get there and make stuff. Sorry, the lighting is changing. I apologize for that. But it is very mindset focused. It is very kind of self-helpy focused, but not necessarily in a bad way. And she does give you some practical advice on how to move beyond various creative hurdles and mental hurdles and just make stuff. The next two are both by Austin Kleon. We have Steal Like an Artist and Show Your Work. I think out of the two, Steal Like an Artist is the best one. Show Your Work is really focused on like the broad strokes of starting a social media career and sharing your work online, which like it's useful, but more for beginners. This book, however, probably changed my life. This book is really, really incredible. Steal like an artist. There's lots of ways to interpret this phrase, but Austin Kleon basically advises you to steal from anyone. Steal from everywhere. Steal from like so many places and people that you don't know where a single thing came from anymore. And by the time that you've stolen all of this stuff and you filter it through your own voice, you will have something original. Something original really truly doesn't exactly exist. Nothing exists in a vacuum, especially art. When you are creating art, you are drawing from everything that you've ever watched or seen or listened to. You have so many things running through your mind that like you are not this blank slate that is creating something. You have inspirations. And so Austin Kleon has us rethink the concept of originality as something that is sort of not original. You are just drawing stuff from lots of different places, and he advises you to steal from other people in order to find your own artistic voice, and that I think is really, really useful. And note that I say steal, not copy. Different things. Yeah. He has lots of really good feedback in this book. If you guys want me to do an in-depth review, I am more than willing to do that, but that is it. That is all of the art books that I own. A lot there. Honestly, this was like a speed run version of this video, but I really hope you guys liked it. A few quick announcements. We are so close to reaching 5K, and as a result I will be live streaming on Friday, probably between 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern. Maybe a little bit shorter, maybe a little bit longer. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know. But I also launched 2 new tiers over my Patreon. So on Patreon you can now find 2 physical reward tiers, a mini originals tier and a mini prints tier. They are limited in terms of spots, so if you were interested, I would act fast. I also just have really cool stuff on my Patreon anyway, so I have exclusive videos every single month, photo reference packs, Notion templates, oh my god, what else, podcast episodes, Spotify playlists, walkthroughs of my YouTube analytics. If you're interested in seeing how much money I'm making right now, that is all over on my Patreon. Alright, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.